Thank you, Carla, and I'd like to thank all of you for being here today. My name is Dr. Kelly Heim. I'm here with Leslie Bonci, and we are very pleased to talk about collagen and answer the questions that you might have. Just to disclose, we're paid advisors to Clean Athlete. We don't have any other conflicts of interest to disclose. I'll let Leslie begin the discussion with some athletes' feedback.
Thank you, Kelly, and hi, everybody. One of the things when we hear something that sounds exciting to us and say, oh, let's figure out from a practical perspective how to make that work with our athletes. And so the reality is that when we think about something like collagen and vitamin C, and I will say, I tried to do this by mixing up some things with my athletes, and we were making gummy bears larger than the size of their head, and then they were trying to get this down as having the gelatin and the vitamin C together, and even though it tasted fine, it was gritty, and practically it didn't work. And so this is the thing, is we're not talking about a one and done. We're talking about consistently every single day. If we are asking our athletes to be compliant and adherent, then things need to happen. Number one, the taste has to be good. And number two, it has to be something that is an acceptable texture, not gritty. And the third thing is that it has to be easy to use. If it's anything that takes any time whatsoever, and that is not just on the part of the athlete, that's on the part of the food service staff, the sports dietitians, etc., it's not going to work. And that's why I'm jumping for joy seeing this product, because it's taken all those issues off the table. So Kelly, let's talk about it in a little bit more detail.
So what are we talking about? We're talking about collagen, obviously, and just to provide an overview of what collagen is, I'm providing this picture here that shows the structure of collagen. And let's pretend this is a tendon. This is a tendon, it has a sheath, and it's made up of components that essentially are collagen spirals and microfibrils that are formed by collagen. And the definition of collagen is, first of all, it's a protein, which means that it's comprised of amino acids. And specifically, it's a kind of protein that is able to form a secondary structure that is helical. And you can see the helix there, and that makes it very strong, resilient, and dense. And that packages very tightly into what we call microfibrils and subfibrils, which aggregate into fibrils that form the tendon or any type of connective tissue we're talking about. The reason why collagen is different from other proteins is because of its amino acid composition. And you can see in the upper right-hand side of your screen, the primary structure of collagen is basically a repeating sequence of glycine, proline, and hydroxyproline. And there can be subtle variations in that sequence, but the common thread is the fact that there's always a glycine at the third residue. That's why glycine is perhaps the most abundant amino acid in collagen. And why is that? Glycine allows this primary structure to form a coil because it's the only amino acid that's small enough to fit in these tight spaces inside of the collagen fibril. Hydroxyproline and proline we'll talk about in more detail, but these are specialized amino acids that are very hard to get in other types of foods. They're not very predominant in the diet, but they're very abundant in collagen. And when you take a collagen supplement, you're ingesting larger amounts of those unique amino acids than you would if you were ingesting any other type of protein. So Leslie, what is collagen? What isn't collagen? So let's just talk about what it isn't before we go on.
Right. And so when we are talking about this, is one of the things about collagen is that it is not a complete protein because it is lacking the essential amino acid tryptophan. So for instance, we'd say, all right, I'm just going to consume collagen all day long and that's it. No, we don't want to be doing that because we need to have all of the essential amino acids in our diet over the course of a 24-hour period of time so that indeed we can synthesize and create new muscle rather than be in breakdown mode. And it's also not the kind of a thing, it's like, oh, let's just sit down to a plate of collagen, that will be delicious. I said, no. And, so when we think about this, the reality is that we're also knowing that we need to do this in a powdered form because this is the way that the body is going to absorb it the best. And so yes, collagen is something that can be critically important for us. If people said, well, I want to do this in a food form, probably the best analogy I could give would be to use bone broth. And let me tell you how most of my athletes don't like that. They won't do that every single day. And so there are a lot of benefits that Kelly is going to elaborate on, but let's be clear on, it is not just collagen to the exclusion of all else. That is not what we're talking about. We need to definitely ensure that we are getting in every amino acid that we need through high quality proteins at each and every meal over the course of the day.
So what you're looking at right here is a typical amino acid profile of collagen. There will be subtle differences between different sources of collagen and where you get your collagen, but generally you'll have a very glycine-rich profile, and you'll have a lot of hydroxyproline and proline. So you really can't get this kind of profile anywhere else. So collagen supplementation will give you something very close to what you're looking at right now. Why do we need it? Let's just look at some of the tissues that require collagen. So collagen is critical for most of the tissues in the body that have structure and rigidity. And that's because collagen is very dense, it's very robust, it's very strong, it's resilient, it can stand up to a lot of pressure, and it doesn't dissolve. It's very, very insoluble, which is a good thing, because when you're trying to lend structure and rigidity to body tissues, you don't want any dissolution in body fluids. Joints are about 70% collagen. Skin is about 75 to 80% collagen, and that's what gives it its elasticity, its smoothness, its firmness, its hydration. Tendons, about 85% collagen. Cartilage, of course, is very rich in collagen. It depends on collagen for all kinds of things, ranging from tensile strength to flexibility and mobility. So lots of tissues require collagen, and as we get older, we tend to break down more than our body is able to make. So there becomes a progressive deficit or imbalance between synthesis and degradation. This also occurs in states of inflammation, where the enzymes that break down collagen are upregulated by inflammatory cytokines. So why do we lose it? It's usually because of one or both of these factors, which pretty much affect all of us, especially aging affects 100% of us. But inflammation from time to time will affect the vast majority of athletes. So let's talk about supplements. There have been a variety of randomized controlled trials showing that collagen supplementation as a hydrolyzed collagen preparation is effective in promoting or maintaining the health of skin, joints, and ligaments, and the performance of ligaments and other connective tissues. There was a recent IOC consensus statement that stated that dietary supplementation containing hydrolyzed collagen could be useful for athletes as an increased intake of these peptides that I'll be talking about in more detail shortly has been shown to modulate collagen synthesis and support that process of the biosynthesis of collagen and potentially moderate tendon and joint-related discomfort. So before we go into individual studies, the scientific consensus is that supplements are effective. Leslie, I don't know if you want to contribute to any of this. I'm just going to go through these very briefly, and if we want to bring any of these up in the Q&A for further discussion, I encourage the audience to mention any interest in that. But just to give you some background on probably the most well-known study in recent years on collagen supplementation, this received a lot of attention. It was very interesting in that the design was very unique. It was a vitamin C enriched gelatin that was administered to 8 healthy male individuals at a dose of 5 or 15 grams. And some of them received a placebo. And that was followed by 6 minutes of jumping rope, which is a natural stimulus for collagen synthesis. So keep in mind that whenever we exercise, that helps to stimulate the synthesis of collagen, which is a good thing. So that they incorporated that just sort of emulate intermittent exercise as a stimulus, and just to see if collagen could potentiate that natural process. And sure enough, they found that there was an increase in serum levels of collagen biomarkers and collagen peptides And also, when they took the serum from these individuals and treated engineered ligaments with that serum that was rich in these collagen peptides, there was an improvement in the mechanics and function and other measurements of function of the ligament in those treated ligaments. So here we have a very unique study that certainly points to the potential for collagen to help support ligament function and strength.
And
Please
Kelly,
note that,
I think just to add to that is that when we look at this study and what it is that they did, it is also with the vitamin C as well, and not just using the gelatin alone. So kind of that synergy effect is critically important. So I want people that are listening to understand it is not just eating Jello. That's not what we're talking about. It's really therapeutically and methodically what tends to make a difference.
absolutely, yes. Please note that this was a vitamin C enriched gelatin supplement. And gelatin and collagen are the same, other than the bioavailability being different, which we'll touch on in a minute. Dosage. We have lots of questions in general that I hear a lot about dosage. How much do you really need all this collagen? Well, the truth is you probably do need the 15 grams, because 5 grams is not as effective. And this graph simply reflects the data from the trial that I just mentioned, looking at collagen concentration in the engineered ligaments exposed to the serum of the treated subjects. So supplementation resulted in a higher collagen concentration in those engineered ligaments than placebo, and 15 grams was far more effective than 5 grams. So, are they the same? You can see here that they have some striking similarities. The major difference here would be the bioavailability resulting from the molecular weight. So, gelatin is partially hydrolyzed by heating. It still has a very high molecular weight. It still retains some of that original complexity of those collagen structures I showed you in the beginning, very insoluble, very dense, not very bioavailable. Your body really can't do anything with that. The enzymes that attack that in the intestine are okay at doing that, but they can't really get into those peptide bonds very easily. Whereas hydrolyzed collagen is an enzymatic preparation that has already been extensively digested. So by the time you ingest it, your enzymes don't have to work very hard, and the bioavailability is excellent. Also, the solubility is very good too. So hydrolyzed collagen, as far as amino acid composition, is the same as gelatin, but they differ in bioavailability. Vitamin C enriched gelatin was used in that trial, and the rationale was the well-known role of vitamin C in promoting collagen synthesis. And it does so by acting as a critical cofactor, coenzyme, for two enzymes that are involved in hydroxylating proline and lysine to their respective hydroxylated derivatives, hydroxyproline and hydroxylysine. These, as I mentioned earlier, are critical for the natural structure of collagen. Without them, we couldn't make collagen. And they're kind of unusual. You can't really get them in many foods, but you really need vitamin C to make these conversions, and that's what vitamin C is there for. Vitamin C also has been found to moderate collagen degradation, which, recall, does occur as a natural process depending on your age and health status. Vitamin C does downregulate some of the enzymes that are involved in that process, like matrix metalloproteinases. So after a hard workout, your MMP activity is probably going to be elevated just because of the natural cytokine release that occurs. If you're overtrained, that's going to be more significant. If you already have some discomfort in your joints or ligaments or tendons, that's even going to be more significant. So the rationale to include vitamin C as part of your supplement is very strong. Just wanted to mention ankle instability. Whenever you sprain your ankle, if anyone has ever experienced that, there's going to be a period of time where you're going to have some instability and mechanical and functional limitations. You might feel fine, but you'll notice that if you're a runner, it just takes longer to warm up. You might be a little bit more sensitive to the normal types of stress that you never used to think twice about. So this study was done on athletes in exactly that same situation. The study involved 50 athletes. They were given collagen at 5 grams per day, which is a pretty low dose, for 6 months, and they found a significant improvement in ankle stability. There was still stiffness. The collagen didn't really get rid of the stiffness, but there was a functional improvement. And when they did a 3-month follow-up, most of the athletes stayed very healthy. Their ankle did not suffer any additional adversity, despite the fact that they were returning to their training. Achilles tendon, this is another tendon that is problematic for a lot of athletes, especially runners and anybody that does a lot of plyometrics or explosive movements. This was a trial that used an even lower dose. It was a small study. Again, 6 months is a typical duration of studies such as these. And they took collagen hydrolysate, and they found that the supplement improved the benefits of physical therapy. So calf strengthening, typical return to running program after an Achilles tendon injury. So collagen was helpful as part of the rehab process. I'm going to just touch on this one other study before we move on. Knee joint. This is a critical issue in sports. Lots of you probably are familiar with some kind of knee joint discomfort as part of your training, or if you've experienced any issues with your knee. This was a larger study. They took a relatively low dose of 5 grams per day for 12 weeks, and they found that individuals who had knee discomfort had a significant improvement compared to placebo. So these were athletes with functional knee discomfort. They were young adults, and this was a 12-week study, which is pretty reasonable. This is a very simple supplement that you can consider for individuals who just want to add something to their program of rehabilitation, or they want to take something to help keep them healthy. So clearly, based on these studies, there are a lot of indications and a lot of areas of utility for collagen supplements in athletes and physically active individuals. This is just a detail from the study showing the change in the knee discomfort, that the reduction of the knee discomfort over time measured in the change in the visual analog scale, which was a measurement of joint discomfort. So it was a significant benefit, especially during physical activity, which is the most important. So one last study. This was probably the lowest dose study that I've seen, 1.2 grams per day. And I wanted to show this because just to show you that, there's a lot of research on this 15-gram dosage, elevating plasma levels of these collagen peptides and doing it in a very robust way. But a low dose may be appropriate. The one thing about this study is it took 6 months to work. They didn't see any results after 3 months. So if you're going to use a low dose or use collagen in general, please keep in mind that it might take up to 6 months to start working. You really just kind of have to stick with it and make it a habit. I'm just going to mention one thing about bioavailability. We often think that proteins that aren't fully digested don't get absorbed, and I just wanted to show you this picture just demonstrating how these collagen peptides get absorbed. The body has these very sophisticated transport proteins that readily take up collagen peptides. The bioavailability of collagen hydrolysates are very good because we have these transporters that not only facilitate the uptake of the amino acids themselves, but of proline and hydroxyproline dipeptides, which are the predominant collagen-derived peptides recovered in serum of those who are supplementing with collagen. So very, very bioavailable compounds that not only get into your bloodstream within 1 hour, but they'll also distribute to tissues as well. So these are the major points I wanted to get across before we start our Q&A. I do have some additional slides, but I don't know, Carla, do you want to just start the Q&A now, and we can pull up the additional slides if they're needed? I mean, we can certainly go on. I just wanted to skip through this part, and maybe we can talk more about the product. I don't know, Leslie, if you want to comment on the product.
Well, and one of the things that I wanted to say, and I mentioned this earlier on, is the ease of use and the practicality of what happens. And I had mentioned as well that when we look at food forms of collagen, there aren't many. It's bone broth, but the reality is that you would probably have to consume at least 2 cups or more, and maybe 3 cups to get enough collagen in, and that's not practical for most people to do, especially if they're not big bone broth fans. So that's something that we really want to consider, and really thinking about that combo. Oh, I have the collagen and I have the vitamin C, and it's in a powder, and I can actually do something functional with it because I can mix it with liquid, and now I'm paying attention to my hydration as well. The simpler it is, the more likely athletes are going to buy into it and be consistent with taking it every single day.
Leslie, would you like to talk about how to use this product?
Sure. And so when we think about, how it's used, and it actually has a very, very appealing taste. So it can be used mixed into a beverage. It's taken as it is. It can be used as a powder into a smoothie. So then you get the added value of whatever else is in that smoothie. If it's additional produce additive, fruits and vegetables, if you're adding something else like, some kind of a peanut butter or some kind of a yogurt, whatever it might be. You could do it in a little lighter, clearer way by adding it to a tea, even an herbal tea or a green tea, or even using it as a slurry, as a liquid that would then be the basis of a popsicle or a slushy. So you can combine this powder with other things, so you get this flavor and function together. It's more than just the liquid alone. My athletes really tend to like things that in some way, shape, or form tend to look like alcohol, but maybe aren't. So, the idea of a non-alcoholic Jello shot, yes, you can do that with it, or even the idea of cubes. And so it was very easy to grab something like that very, very quickly. And let me just say that as we are hopefully getting into the warm time of the year, although I'm here in Kansas City today and it's still cold, it's like, ugh, but do a freezy pop, that type of a thing with it. So it's very, very easy to grab, and yeah, it's fun, and yeah, that's something that's familiar, but it's also functional. So we're trying to add that third F to the equation of putting the functionality and the consistency into what it is our athletes do every single day.
So just some details about the product are shown here. I just wanted to kind of put this in front of you so you know what's in it. So we've got 14 grams of protein from collagen, hydrolyzed collagen, in addition to 50 milligrams of vitamin C, and that combination is consistent with the clinical research showing efficacy of the combination as well as the individual ingredients. And it's 1 scoop daily, dissolved in 8 to 10 ounces of water, or as directed by your trainer, coach, or health professional, or any of the ideas that Leslie just mentioned. Let's talk about pairing with other products. Any other points on that, Leslie, that I didn't cover?
Well, and I think the idea of pairing, because, when athletes are saying, all right, I'm trying to be protective and proactive regarding the health of my joints, it's also, what else are you doing that's taking care of your body as a physically active individual? So we don't want to forget about the hydros, the importance of hydration and value added. It's more than just the fluid. Are you hydrating appropriately because you have enough carbohydrate and electrolytes? So we could pair the collagen plus vitamin C with the clean hydration. We also think about what happens in athletes in that period of time after exercise. So if somebody is really trying to do one-stop shopping, we know that after vigorous exercise, yes, you're going to want to think about what you're doing in terms of fueling. Are you helping to replete from the carbohydrate aspect? Are you providing enough protein to aid in muscle protein synthesis post-exercise? So we could combo the collagen plus vitamin C with the clean recovery product. Or if we have somebody that says, okay, I'm thinking about making sure that I have enough protein over the course of the day, and I had a heavy workout, and I'm not really, really hungry. I just don't feel like eating. It's too hot. I'm too tired to chew, whatever excuse it is that people give. So the idea of, again, comboing, we could do the collagen plus vitamin C in addition to the clean isolate, where we're basically just getting the protein alone, and this way we're ensuring that somebody is getting in that therapeutic dose of protein they need to also aid in the process of muscle protein synthesis, because I mentioned before, collagen is not a complete protein. There's other things it is doing. It's not a replacement. So when we put them both together, it's the best of all possible worlds.
Whatever combinations you decide to use in your athletes or as part of your own training, you can trust that all products from Clean Athlete are tested for banned substances, and certified by the NSF Certified for Sport program. And that was created to meet the needs of athletes, coaches, and healthcare professionals to ensure that their supplements are safe and free from banned substances that are on the most recent WADA list. The NSF Certified for Sport program is summarized here. The screening accounts for 180 or more WADA banned substances, and the reason is mainly to decrease the risk of a positive doping test, but the more overarching rationale is if a professional athlete can't take it, then you probably shouldn't take it too. So we want to make sure it's safe, we want to make sure it's reliable, and we want to make sure that you get the most extensively tested and validated supplements available. So that concludes our slide presentation. I want to open it up for any questions. So Carla, do you want to begin the Q&A?
Okay, great. Let me just take it from the top here. Does the timing of collagen with vitamin C supplementation make a difference?
Timing. Well, 1 hour before exercise was suggested by the study that I did mention on the rope skipping. But you can take collagen at other times of day, irrespective of your training session, and still benefit from it. I don't know if Leslie, you want to comment on that.
Right, and I think as I always say to my athletes is you also need to think about how does it feel. If it doesn't feel comfortable to do it before exercise and you decide to take it before bed because that's not when your gut is moving and you're not physically active. It's just that getting it in when it makes the most sense and when you're actually going to remember to do it. As I say to my athletes always, just because you're carrying the container around, you get no brownie points for that. You actually need to consume what is in there for it to have any functional benefit whatsoever.
That's a good point. You don't get brownie points for carrying it around. It's not very heavy either, so you're probably not making any more muscle either. The next question is coming in from Anthony. He asks, is there any risk of stomach discomfort if this product isn't mixed with enough water?
I think it's unlikely. I don't know, Leslie, do you have any experience with that, not putting it in enough water?
You know what, I think that if anybody is, if you're thinking about I'm going to do something before exercise and I made it as a slurry and it doesn't have a lot of liquid in it and it feels like it's sitting in your stomach for a longer period of time, it's more that it's just a little bit too concentrated. So if you're going to use it before exercise, then yes, you do want to mix it with the appropriate amount of liquid so that it is not a problem for you, but more related to what the osmolality would be more than anything else.
Right, and I would say it's similar to a whey protein. You know, if you're exercising and you like, or if your gut is used to drinking a drink like a whey protein before exercise, you'll probably tolerate collagen, but you do want to make sure that it's appropriately mixed. The next question is, if it takes 6 months to begin to show efficacy, is there a way to increase the dosage of collagen in order to speed up effectiveness, for example, for an injured athlete?
Well, keep in mind the study that I showed that did require a 6-month period to notice an effect was done on older individuals with knee pain. And the other studies using younger athletes or other types of areas of injury or rehab, those were shorter studies and they did show a benefit. So if you're dealing with a tendon or ligament or soft tissue injury in a young or even a young middle-aged athlete, you probably don't need 6 months. And also, even the study that did take 6 months, it was only because they didn't look at any of the measurements between 3 and 6 months. They just measured them at 3 and measured them again at 6. So the majority of studies do support that collagen actually does work faster than that study did show. Regarding dosage, keep in mind that 15 grams is still on the pretty high end, I believe. You can get away with a lower dose, but it's very individual. I don't know if Leslie wants to comment on that.
Well, I think in that study as well, it was 1.2, isn't it, what they used? So,
Yes, that's true.
yeah. So, when we're looking at and what you showed, that it seems that 15 is a therapeutic dose. So sometimes, I mean, we do talk about not taking something to excess. There's no reason to do it. But if you significantly undercut, or the limbo approach, then it might take a lot longer to get to the endpoint you're trying to, because it simply isn't enough that confer a therapeutic benefit.
Right. Okay. So I think we covered that one. The next question is, of the five most common types of collagen, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, do you recommend a balance of all 5 for athletes, or 1 or 2 specifically? And what has most of the research been used in their studies?
Good question. There are about 16 different types of collagen in the body, but 80 to 90% of your body's collagen is 1, 2, and 3. The type of collagen you'll find in the Clean Athlete product is primarily type 1 and type 2, and that is consistent with many of the studies that have used collagen hydrolysates as a supplement. But as I don't think there's a need for a balance or a spectrum or a complex of collagens. Based on the research, it doesn't need to be all that more complicated than it already is. As long as you're getting collagen in type 1 and type 3. Type 2, I don't know if that's commonly being included, but that's just my take on it.
Somebody had asked if this is going to come in another flavor in the future, and there's the potential for that. There's vitamin C added to this product, so it will probably not be a chocolate or more of a dessert type flavor. It'll mostly maintain that kind of acidic flavor of fruit or something like that, but it's a possibility if we get enough interest. So another question is, how long will it last in liquid before coming gelatinous? This is a great question. My thought is to pre-make the supplements so that I'm not waiting for the athletes to show up before treatment or dosing. Yeah. So, does anybody?
Yeah, I don't
know.
know.
The answer is it will not become gelatinous.
Yeah, I mean, it shouldn't. I don't know, Leslie. Have you noticed anything when you use collagen as far as the consistency changing if you leave it in a glass of water?
It's interesting. I will tell you, and I hear what the question is about people wanting to do things in advance. I'm just going to give you my take from our players here. They won't stand for that. They don't like that. They don't want to know if something's been sitting there for an extended period of time. If they want to do it themselves, or they want it done right then and there. So no, we haven't had that experience with it.
Yeah, and it shouldn't happen. Just chemically speaking, it shouldn't happen, because it's still not gelatin, and just by sitting in water, you're not going to convert hydrolyzed collagen back into gelatin. It's chemically impossible. But knowing dietary supplements, leaving them around in fluids generally isn't great practice. So if you can, it's probably best to mix it as soon as you can, and not let it sit around and settle or change in any kind of way.
Right, I would just say, within 30 minutes, like at the longest time, maybe an hour, and keep it chilled as well.
Yeah.
Okay. The interesting thing about collagen, though, that's different about collagen and gelatin, is that you could potentially cook or heat this hydrolyzed collagen and not have any kind of gelling that would occur with gelatin. So it will not, retort back to a gelatinous form once it's heated. So some people might want to use this in an oatmeal per se, or maybe they want to mix it into muffins or something. That's perfectly acceptable.
Or even if somebody's doing cold weather activity and the idea of having something cold is just not appealing to them. So yes, indeed, if you want to mix it into a hot cider, or maybe not a rum toddy, not a good idea, but something like this, yes, you can use it warm too.
Mm-hmm. Okay. The next question is, the smaller, does it need to be taken on an empty stomach?
Not necessarily. It can be taken with food. It can be mixed with other things, other proteins. It's pretty flexible.
So somebody else had asked, how long is it good for once you mix it in? So again, err on the side of mixing it with, I mean, even if somebody takes it, you know, their almond milk or whatever they're going to mix it with, it's not hard to take a powder. That's the nice thing about this hydrolyzed collagen. It's very convenient. So if you just put one serving in a bag or in a small Tupperware container, you can easily mix it up, and it mixes very well, very easily with any kind of fluid that you have at the time of drinking it. The next question is, any study or efficacy for dosing for acute sprains or strains? Not that I know of, but Kelly, do you know of any? Leslie?
Well, yeah, I mean, acute depends on what you mean by acute, but the Achilles tendonitis and the ankle instability, those are more chronic, and it was a prolonged period of supplementation. So, but acutely, it certainly wouldn't hurt. It probably would be best if you know, as soon as the injury is present, to begin a comprehensive program that includes collagen as part of that.
Okay. Okay, another one. Is there any research on the upper limits of collagen? 30 grams of collagen a day. Is that positive or negative?
To my knowledge, I don't know what the upper limit is, but that is an excellent question. Leslie, do you know anything about high doses and safety, tolerability?
The biggest issue seems to be that some people may experience some digestive distress with it at higher levels, but is it any more effective? Are you actually going to use it all, or are you going to lose some of it? You know, that's the million-dollar question. And you know, I would say more is not necessarily better, it's just more. We really want to be effective with what it is that we're doing every day. Say, oh, if I double the dose, I'm going to heal that much faster. I don't think we have any studies to show that that is the case.
Yeah, I don't think so either, but it is a good question.
Okay. And then this next question, I mean, I think to that point, it all depends on the person and their body size and the amount of, you know, tissue that the collagen is repairing. You know, it may be different between a 115-pound runner versus a 250-pound lineman. So
Sure.
just to keep that in mind too.
And the other thing I would add to that is just to think about what the underlying diet is like. You know, for instance, if we had people whose protein intake is pretty darn low to begin with, you know, they may see a better benefit than somebody who is eating much more protein than they need to have each and every day. So it's just, it's something to think about in terms of how effective and the efficacy of something based upon not just the amount of supplement they take, but what else do they bring to the table or the plate, so to speak.
Exactly, yeah. Somebody had asked just kind of along these lines, would you need to use the product daily to get the benefits, or would you see the benefits if you only use it 3 to 5 times per week?
That's an interesting and common pattern of supplementation for people in general. Taking your supplement every day can be a challenge. I don't know of any studies that have used that pattern as a part of their design. It wouldn't surprise me if that was effective, though, given the fact that when you ingest collagen, within 1 to 2 hours, your blood levels of those peptides are markedly elevated, and then that level goes down rapidly because it gets distributed into tissues. And once these peptides are in tissues, they most likely stick around for a little while. I don't know offhand how long they're there, but long enough to elicit an anabolic response in the tissue. So because you're skipping a day and allowing 48 hours to go by instead of 24, theoretically, I don't really see that as being a problem. But just to get the most out of the supplement and to practice an evidence-based protocol, it's probably ideal to try to get it in every day.
And I would say as well, we're trying to establish routine and consistency, which at least I find with my athletes, and I know I'm not the only one, that can be a challenge. So well, you don't have to do it every day. Then 3 weeks go by and they haven't necessarily done it. So because we know that it's not a problem for them to be taking it every single day. And if that increases the likelihood that their compliance goes up, then daily may just be something that we try and drum into their heads.
Okay. So those are about all the questions that we have, and I think you know, that was a good discussion. I think we got a lot of good questions answered. One just came in. Do you give this to all athletes, or just those who have a history of injury? Another good question. Last one.
Yeah, you could certainly give it to anyone who's interested in staying healthy or getting healthy. So certainly, if you want to supplement just because you know that you're putting a lot of stress on your tendons, ligaments, and joints, then certainly that makes sense. Or if you're starting from a rehab type of situation and you're trying to get back in the game, equally beneficial as far as just the reason to use it. Most of the studies, though, of course, naturally, these interventional trials are going to take athletes who are already hurt and then see if they improve. So just because of that, most of what we know about the efficacy is in people who have already sustained some type of injury.
Right. So that was the last question. I just wanted to thank everybody who attended and everybody who asked questions in the webinar, so that we could all kind of get to this higher level of understanding and really evaluate what we've learned before and previously about collagen, and then compare it to some of the science and some of the research that Kelly presented, as well as some of the usage that Leslie highlighted on. It doesn't help if you have the product in your bag, or if you purchased a product, you have to use it with consistency to see the similar benefits that what's been studied is actually happening in the body. So with that, I would like to thank Kelly and thank Leslie, and also mention that we have a code up on the screen right now. There is a 15% off and free shipping code that you can use whenever you're checking out of the Clean Athlete website on any of the supplements that you'd like to use. And we'll also have these slides available for anyone who attended the webinar in a follow-up email that will be sent out in 1 to 2 days. So with that, Kelly, Leslie, do you have anything else to close with?
No, I just wanted to say thank you, Carla, and I want to thank everybody who joined us today.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, everybody. And certainly we want to hear if you're using it and what it is that you're noticing with your athlete. That's important. You're out there in the trenches doing this.
Correct. And if we have another flavor coming out, we'll let you know as soon as we can. All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.